followed by the Commissioner, after which we will take questions.
Thank you, Pumza. We are also accompanied by the Director General of the National Treasury.
My apologies. He's sitting right in the front.
Who has conveniently chosen to sit right in front of me to make sure that...
next to Judge Cruz.
You sit next to the judge. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you all for attending today's briefing. Preliminary outcomes of the revenue collection for this financial year, which closed a few hours ago. As per your instruction, Pumza, I just would like to make a few opening remarks before the Commissioner gives you a more detailed overview, because he is the one who was responsible for collecting this revenue. The numbers that we report today are proof that the South African Revenue Service is an efficient and stable institution that we should all be proud of. And let me assure you that we guard jealously its ability to do the job without fear or favor. Ladies and gentlemen, revenue movements are highly dependent on a number of things, but I want to touch on three of those. The first is the developments in the economy, the second being policy and administrative changes, and the third being the efforts by the Revenue Service to improve compliance. On economic developments, when we tabled our budget in February this year, we flagged the following factors that affected growth in 2014-15. One, we spoke about lower commodity prices, slow growth among major trading partners, and in particular China and Europe, and volatility in global and monetary policy and capital flows. We spoke about the protracted labor disputes in the mining and manufacturing sectors and electricity supply shortages. We also spoke about low consumer and business confidence. But these factors notwithstanding, revenue growth this fiscal year just ended and remained resilient. And I'm informed it grew by 9.6%. as the rate of economic growth slowed. This resilience was a reflection of mainly two things, if I were to say so. The first being the significant improvements in compliance driven by SARS and the policy changes that were introduced earlier to treat appropriately the vesting of shares. The combined effect of these measures is an increase in revenue estimated to close to 30 billion rands. On compliance measures, these were able to yield about 22 billion rands, accounting for 2.4 percentage points of the 9.3% in revenue growth. And a significant increase in the vesting of shares added 8.6 billion rands to revenue. If I were to just quickly touch on the policy and administrative changes, I'll focus a bit on the three biggest contributors to the revenue, namely personal income tax, VAT, and company income tax. On personal income tax, over the last 4 years, personal income tax growth has recorded significantly stronger growth than the growth in the total wage bill. For the fiscal year, PIT increased by around 13% compared to growth in the total wage bill of around 8%. This strong growth in PIT reflects limited fiscal drag and strong wage growth, well above the CPI headline inflation, particularly for skilled workers. While the strong wage growth has been supportive to PIT revenue, it also reflects some structural challenges. Our economy continues to struggle with the availability of skills. Therefore, those who have skills come at a premium. The personal income tax has also become the largest contributor to overall revenue. Its share has increased from 29.5% of the total revenue in 2007-8 to about 35.6% currently. But this trend will become unsustainable unless the higher PIT contributions are driven by a greater number of people who are earning income rather than individuals being taxed at higher effective tax rates. Turning to company income tax, the adverse economic conditions had a negative effect on company profitability and CIT collections. Growth slowed down to around 3% in nominal terms from 11.4% in 2013-14. Improved compliance measures were a major contributor to CIT revenue growth, adding about 13 billion rands to revenue. In the absence of these interventions, CIT revenue would have contracted. Companies chose to pay dividends rather than invest in the fiscal year. This reflected the weak economic conditions, but more importantly, their view on the economic outlook. The dividend withholding tax contributions increased to 21.4 billion rands, which is a 23.6% increase on the previous year. And perhaps I will then touch quickly on VAT. Net VAT, which consists of domestic VAT, import VAT, and VAT refunds, grew by 9.6% in 2014-15 from 10.5% in the previous fiscal year. Despite stronger domestic VAT growth and supportive growth in VAT refunds, growth in net VAT slowed as import VAT recorded growth of only 3%. There was also a significant increase in the contributions by smaller companies, which is in line with their increased contributions to company income tax. This again reflected SARS's efforts to increase compliance, which the Commissioner will also touch on. With regard to the third part, ladies and gentlemen, of revenue services improving compliance, the Commissioner will provide the details, as I've said, on the initiatives that are being currently implemented. Suffice to say that we at the National Treasury are supporting the Commissioner and his team in their efforts to perform their core function of revenue collection. In conclusion, let me indicate that our country has one of the most progressive tax systems in the world, thereby enabling government to redistribute wealth and provide public services to millions of South Africans. Therefore, our expenditure is redistributive and includes the provision of social grants, free schooling, free housing, and other free basic services. All this would not be possible without the contribution of taxpayers who pay their fair share. I wish to congratulate the Commissioner, Mr. Moyane here, for providing leadership and strategic guidance during difficult times. My appreciation goes to all the SARS staff who, despite a difficult economic climate, continue to raise the bar and ensure that government has financial resources to deliver a better life for all South Africans. Their dedication and commitment inspire all of us and makes me a proud person to be their minister. And finally, but most importantly, I take this opportunity to thank every taxpayer and trader who paid their fair share of tax during this financial year, and who also did so in time, so that when we closed our books, their dues were in our books. Ladies and gentlemen, let me allow the Commissioner to talk to the real numbers, and I will come back if there is a need to. And if not, the Deputy Minister here and the Director General will deal with the most difficult questions that you raise. Thank you. Commissioner.
Honorable Minister of Finance, Nhlanhla Nene, Honorable Deputy Minister of Finance, Mcebisi Jonas, Director General of the National Treasury, Lungisa Fuzile, members of the SARS Executive Committee present here, senior SARS officials and National Treasury present here, officials, members of the media, good afternoon. Honorable Minister, The outstanding return and revenue numbers you have just announced are just a testimony that South Africans and taxpayers have spoken, and without doubt demonstrated their confidence on SARS that they have shown in what we have done today. It gives me great pleasure to address you today on the occasion of our final revenue collection outcomes announced for the financial year 2014-2015. Today we are announcing these results in line with our mandate and vision. In the first instance, collect all revenue due effectively and efficiently so, to optimize revenue yield, to facilitate trade and enlist new tax contributors by promoting awareness of the obligations to comply with tax and customs laws, and provide a quality responsive service to the public. These are the pillars of the 14,000 plus staff that has at all times sought to uphold. When I joined SARS some 6 months ago, at an incredibly busy time, I immediately immersed myself with the key fiscal and tax matters, which the organization was busy addressing to be part of the SARS team. I started in the midst of the tax season for individuals and trusts. What followed was an issue which affected us, wherein cynics predicting an impending demise of the brand SARS, the hallmark of good standing and lack of leadership. This was meant to distract us away from our core mandate and create a climate of uncertainty and doubt amongst our staff and employees and the taxpayers in particular, that would have a non-compliant society and we have what you call a tax revolt. We have made efforts by employees of SARS at an organizational level. What makes this achievement more incredible is that it was done despite the negative media coverage about SARS, impending disarray, incompetence, and over the past few months, which has at times called into question SARS' ability to meet its mandate. I'm proud to say on the 25th of this month, our Minister Nene said at the Standing Committee of Finance, I quote, "SARS is not about individuals. It is a sum total of magnanimous men and women, collective leadership addressing its core mandate, unlike a forest which is made of individual trees," close quote. SARS staff maintain steadfast and committed in ensuring they deliver on their mandate. I'm extremely proud to lead such a committed group of people who have worked tirelessly beyond the call of duty. The effort by employees, the punishing hours, attention to detail, hard work and commitment to South Africa are the key ingredients in this effort. However, I must concede that the sheer scale of the task is astonishing and humbling. This is a historical milestone for the ministry, SARS and the country as a whole, an affirmation to the taxpayers and traders who have confidence in SARS. Revenue collection is a function of how the economy functions and performs. From an economic perspective, it is one thing getting very good results when the economic outlook is strong, but when the sentiment is negative and GDP growth is in decline, the challenge is much more difficult. As an indicator of this economic outlook was a downward revision of the GDP growth from 2.9 in 2014 to 1.4 in February of this year. To have achieved this year's outcome in this context is significant and substantial. The Minister has already indicated that the initiatives implemented by SARS that ensured compliance and improvements are on the agenda. To ensure that these and other initiatives yielded maximum revenue, my task, therefore, was to ensure that a conducive environment was created within SARS, management and staff, that could optimally perform their duties. We needed to ensure that everyone across SARS were mobilized in meeting our revenue challenge. In this regard, we established regional steering committees that brought various divisions in SARS together to collectively deal with the revenue collection process and challenges that we faced. This ensured that we break the silo mentality in our revenue collection drive. Considerable efforts were made by SARS management team in engaging and providing direction to regional steering committees, with many managers being deployed to specific teams, especially those working on higher revenue initiatives. And regions where they could provide additional support and motivation. We also established a National Operations Center, which we have named STARS, SARS, Transparency, Accountability, Responsibility and Sustainability, to coordinate all activities pertaining to the revenue drive of 2014-2015 and beyond. The STARS National Operations Center coordinated and provided strategical guidance to operationalize units to ensure a comprehensive and sustainable response to the many challenges that militated against the effective revenue collection. Minister, to ensure our revenue efforts continued without interruptions, we launched a business continuity initiatives by addressing the ICT Command Center to make sure that systems and facilities problems did not have a negative impact on the revenue collection. Another measure was once again the reconvening of the monitoring center that brought together revenue collection experts in one room. This center comprises cash flow specialists, tax type specialists, and economists. Their role was to oversee the entire collection process for the final 3 months of the financial year, making sure that totals are running to the schedule and that any blockages are identified early and resolved speedily. I'll speak to the initiatives in strengthening SARS. We have embarked on the following measures to address revenue compliance. Review our operating model in order to professionalize our delivery model. Review the modernization strategy to perfect our operations and services offerings and include the efficacy and efficiencies of the systems. We also want to review the value for money in the investment that SARS has put into the process in itself. We also want to review and strengthen the governing process in order for SARS to be able to meet its mandate and obligations. Allow me then to speak on compliance improvements. The SARS media campaign against irregular refund claims, including medical and disability costs, donations and income protection, these have been attended to. And these are included in the prevention of fraudulent PIT refunds from being released. The second area that we're dealing with is this year's revenue campaign saw SARS contact center and branches answering approximately 5 million calls, revenue calls, inbound calls, and 2 million outbound calls in this respect. We have also broadened the SMME tax base as a result of SARS outreach programs, which saw more than 18,000 companies submitting returns for the first time in 2014-2015. We are also focused on debt management programs aided by sophisticated analytics and employment of debt collection professionals. We are also looking at SARS, looking at the base erosion and profit shifting, and this had a positive contribution to the 2014-2015 revenue collection process. We are also looking at the SARS voluntary disclosure program designed to encourage taxpayers to regularize their tax affairs and avoid the imposition of penalties added to the 2014-2015 collection. And finally, we're looking at applying the paragraph 19.3 or the fourth schedule of the Income Tax Act. SARS continues to ensure that companies adhere to the correct provision of payment schedule reflective of their business results. Our commitment to the closing of the tax gap. The SARS estimate for the 2014-2015 financial year will reach a historic high. We will be able to require to collect after many refunds the final for the first year over a trillion rands in the financial year that we want to put in place. SARS has played a prominent role in the global exchange of information and BEPS programs designed by participating countries in the OECD to bring to book errant taxpayers. This has already in the financial year yielded over 1 billion rands in total. Coupled with the renewed focus on human resource capital and ensure a COPS to tax and customs professional, SARS has also invested intensively in the data analytics to effectively engage the growing sophistication of modern and global society. In conclusion, in the last 3 months, we've had torrid but exciting and uplifting moments. It has allowed me, in real terms, a window into the hearts of SARS, my entire staff, and the whole work that we do to make South Africa move. I want to thank the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the Director General for the support and guidance. Equally, my profound thanks to my EXCO and Treasury teams, the group executives gathered here, all their managers and entire staff for the exceptional work they have put into meeting our commitment to all South Africans. Finally, I would like to express my appreciation to each and every South African taxpayer who contributes to the tax revenue. Without you, this target would not have been achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll notice that none of us actually really went into the numbers because you've got them in your statements. So please do not ask why we didn't repeat the numbers. We take it that journalists, part of what journalists do is to read. We do read your stuff, but it is because you read more than we do. So it's for that reason that we actually didn't go into the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We will now take questions. Please tell us your name and the media house you represent as you ask your question.
For that reason that we both prepared our speeches so that we read on your behalf as well.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Renee Volgraaf speaking from Bloomberg News. Minister, I'm not sure whether this is for the Commission or yourself, but I just want to get an idea. I can't immediately see the revised February revenue collection target or revenue estimate here. I just looking for that number. And then secondly, a question for you specifically, Minister. As we were sitting here, we got an email from the presidency basically that 3 new cabinet ministers were appointed. So I would like to know, given the revenue, or given the spending growth limits that you spoke about in your February budget and the revenue collection numbers that we saw today, do we have money in the budget for 3 new cabinet ministers and everything that comes with them?
Yes.
Inga Lamprecht from MoneyWeb. Minister, could we get an update about the progress the review committee that has been announced during the February budget has been making in its operational review of SARS? And then also currently underway as an effort to revive the taxpayer movement South Africa, which will give grassroots taxpayers it will give grassroots taxpayers the opportunity to also give their views in informing tax policy. What is your view on this, the revivement of this movement?
Diabo Seto from SABC Business News. Minister, you mentioned in your commentary that collection is at risk unless people earn more money. Does this necessarily suggest that government could be considering or will be considering higher public wages in future? And does it also suggest that maybe companies should look at increasing salaries of people? Yes, just that one question.
I think we can go ahead and answer those questions.
Thank you. The revised target, there are 3 targets here. There was a target for the 2014 budget, which was 993 billion. And that's the one I would have loved us to be chasing. But we were convinced that given the economic environment, it would not be wise. It is for that reason that during the MTBPS, we revised our target downwards. That was now the second. That's the second target in October, which was 983. And then during the budget, we again were alive to the reality that the economy was not performing at the level at which it was. And I did mention the factors. Then our revised target was 979. So that's the target that SARS was chasing. And that's the target that SARS overperformed on, and I felt very guilty. We should have kept it at least at 983. But we did also mention the factors that actually resulted in the positive outcome. So we wouldn't have banked on those some of those positive outcomes, because we would have been unrealistic in our target. The Deputy Minister will deal with the question in relation to the advisory panel. It's not a review committee. It is an advisory panel in terms of Section 11 of our legislation. And the head of that panel, Judge Kroon, is here to make sure that his task and his terms of reference are religiously adhered to. And that's why he's sitting next to the DG also. You spoke about the appointment of 3 new cabinet ministers. You see, you get me worried, because I'm not too sure whether I'm still a minister. Because I didn't know about that announcement, because I've spent my night here at SARS and my morning here. I only went to one event at the Department of Education, so I'm just hoping that I steer away from going to the union buildings, because I don't know what has happened to my position. But let me say that the appointment of cabinet ministers is purely the prerogative of the president, and when that happens, it is something that has to do with the functioning of the state. And in order for the state, part of what the Commissioner reported in is how SMMEs have actually started playing their role and contributing to the economy. I wouldn't say that it is solely as a result of the establishment of the Ministry of Small Business Development, but it has played a tremendous role in making sure that the importance and the role of small and medium enterprises is placed at the center of our agenda. So I don't have a direct answer, but some of the departments would actually be funded out of resources already. I mean, all of them will be funded out of resources already allocated. There would not be an increase in allocations necessitated by new departments. You spoke about the revival of this. I'm not too sure what this movement is. I wouldn't want to express a view on the movement. The public is entitled to organizing itself in a manner that begins to increase awareness of its rights, of its responsibilities. I would want to believe that that would be one of what it would be responsible for. But I wouldn't want to, pass a view on whether such a movement is desirable or not. If the community feels it's desirable, then the community will actually make use of such a movement. Deputy Minister and perhaps the Commissioner, but first the Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good afternoon, everybody. I think on the advisory panel, can I start off by saying that I think we're taking a more medium, long-term perspective on the work of the panel. And I know that commentary has been about this as being a short-term response to the issues that have been raised by the media. It's broader than that in its focus. Ultimately, we see it as a mechanism for strengthening tax administration in South Africa, supporting SARS and Treasury in that regard. Whereas if you look at the Davis Commission, it focuses on tax policy. That's important to keep it at the back of your mind. It's not just about responding to the crisis and the challenges that people have spoken about, written about so well. The second point to make is that because of that, there are a number of initiatives that feed into the panel's work. The first is work that KPMG is doing, looking at doing an assessment and evaluation of what has been going on at a technical level within SARS. There's work that Bain and Gartner are doing, the companies, which are looking at strengthening systems and administrative systems and IT and continuing with the modernization program in SARS. All of those combined, they feed into the process. Although we must emphasize that their immediate focus is going to deal with what has been topical in the media, what has been going around as this unit that exists in SARS. Part of what they are doing is, broadly speaking, to advise the Minister and Treasury about how to, and the Commissioner, how to deal with that so that in the future you do not have those things arising. I stress the point, though, that it is not a short-term intervention. It is a longer-term thing that we're introducing to strengthen governance, to also ensure that we improve and continue to strengthen tax administration in the country. It's already working. That's why you see Judge Krohn here, and you have a couple of other members. They've been here yesterday. They are hard at work. Obviously, you would appreciate that it's still very early to expect any detailed report on the work that they are doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Perhaps let me also clarify what I meant by the fact that CIT was also given a boost by the strong growth in salaries. I would actually want to opt for the opposite here, moderation in wages. But if the increase in salaries has to do with the increase in productivity, I mean, I would be quite for that, but you will notice that in the speech I also did say that this is unsustainable, relying on taxing the ones that are in the system. We would want to create more employment so that there are more taxpayers than taxing the ones that are inside. But unfortunately, if we are not growing employment, we end up taxing the existing ones more heavier. But I would really want to advocate for moderation in wage increases so that they also, because you see there are two sides to it. Our expenditure also carries employment in government, and we would want to pay more people, increase productivity, than pay less people, more wages, and only just rely on them being good taxpayers.
Do you have more questions? Just go ahead.
The Commissioner wanted to
just a point of clarity. Minister gave three areas where in the revenue targets were allocated, the 993 billion, and then we had 983 billion that was revised during the MTBPS, and then the 979. We want to inform yourselves that SARS has overachieved on the target. We have, as of last night and this morning, collected 986 billion. So we've surpassed the target by 7.4 billion. So this is due to the efforts that we have put in place by all members of SARS, looking at various initiatives that we had to attend to. Most importantly is the resilience and the hard work that was demonstrated by the entire team across the whole length of South Africa. It is for this reason that the Minister wanted to up the bar to 993 when he met us yesterday. And certainly we would like to assure taxpayers in South Africa that it is correct, it's cool, it goes in line with tax morality that we pay our taxes. Minister has indicated the areas which, with respect to the taxes that we collect, we're able to take children to school, hospitals, and the like. And therefore, we want to keep to our mandate to efficiently and effectively collect all revenue due. And we hope all of us sitting here will have paid our taxes. Thanks, Minister.
Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead with the question. Sorry, can you please?
Is that better?
Sorry, did you introduce yourself?
Sorry, Nicholas Barr from eNCA. Commissioner and Minister, just congratulations for surpassing your revised estimate that was announced in the February budget. I just wanted to know the comings and goings at SARS over the past couple of months that led to the exit and suspension of a lot of senior executives. Had that not happened, do you think that this figure would have been higher? And maybe that's for the Commissioner, and then for the Minister, based on the fact that you've had such good figures above your estimates, will you still be pushing for this review by Judge Kroon, or will the scope of that review now be affected at all?
Good morning, it's Nzaki Simashangani from Business Day. Do the latest numbers have any impact on your budget deficit forecasts? Will you be reviewing them downwards, or will they still remain the same? Thank you.
Banele from Business Report. I'm happy that both the Minister and Commissioner are here. We've had reports from analysts that with the CIT, PIT, and corporate tax all kind of stretched to the limit, what are the possibilities of government considering raising the VAT, which hasn't been increased since 1993, to make up for the budget deficit?
Okay, thank you. We shall go ahead.
I thought the question about comings and goings would have gone by now. But indeed, I'm not sure whether the Commissioner would have an answer to this one. But what this proved, and the Commissioner read a quote from the speech I made to Parliament. I didn't know it was that strong, Commissioner. But if I were to repeat it much milder now, that I said, I think what we have at SARS is an institution rather than individuals. And I would want to believe that what we needed was the leadership that we have seen of taking the institution forward to continue performing in its given mandate. I wouldn't want then to again pass a judgment of whether the numbers would have been better or worse, but I think the team performed exceedingly well under the circumstances, because it was not only the negative reporting, and this is what I keep on saying, that it's not about the developments, because remember when the Commissioner came to SARS, the media was already reporting negatively about SARS, and it is as a result of some of the findings of the commissions that had been commissioned before the Commissioner arrived. There are too many commissions in my speech, but I would want to believe that also this goes to also the explanation that the Deputy Minister gave with regards to the establishment of the panel, the advisory panel. This panel, it's not only looking at the issues. We said we established this in terms of Section 11 of the SARS Act. Its intention is to do precisely what the previous advisory panels have done in the past. We did have an advisory panel early, and we did mention that in the late 90s up to 2002, we had this panel in order to look at the entire architecture and advise the Minister and the Commissioner in strengthening the capability and the capacity of SARS. That's precisely what we are doing again this time around, because it has taken a bit of time since we had a similar advisory panel. This goes also to the question that was asked about VAT, that you seem to be concerned that we haven't done anything on VAT for a long period of time. We will be discussing the findings and the recommendations of the Davis Tax Committee on this matter. We did indicate during the budget tabling that we did not want to preempt the outcome of such engagement. And we would want to allow South Africans to engage quite openly on the issue of other sources of revenue. The numbers indeed will have a positive impact on our fiscal framework, but we wouldn't want to give you what that impact is right now. We just got the numbers today, and these are preliminary numbers. By around June, we would be in a position to work out exactly what the impact of this performance is going to be on our forecasts and projections. Commissioner, do you want to add anything? I don't think so. The Deputy Minister.
Okay, one more question from Bloomberg.
Minister, it's Renee again from Bloomberg. I'm happy to tell everybody that the presidency apparently has got a sense of humor. But Minister, given the fact that we did collect more tax in the last...
You know, when you keep on reminding me, just now when you leave here, you'll also think that the numbers we presented here had to do with the date.
That's what I'm a bit worried about now, Minister. So, I would want to ask you, given the deficit consolidation numbers you spoke about in February and the fact that we have now surpassed the collection target, are you confident that we are going to be able to do the consolidation that you announced in February?
Do you have another question? Is that the last one? It is.
Thank you. Can I? I think the DG has been too comfortable. And it would be very unfair to go back with him to the office and having rendered him redundant. Director General of the National Treasury.
No, thanks, Minister. Perhaps, if I heard the question properly, the first part is the 7 billion over collection for the financial year which ended yesterday does mean that the deficit for 2014-15 is now lower than what we had presented in the budget in February. Now, it is too early to use that to begin to speculate about whether things are going to be different when we come out in October with the medium-term budget policy statement. In other words, we can't just use this very quickly to extrapolate the deficit for the financial year that starts today and the future ones. On fiscal consolidation, both in the budget review and the minister emphasized this in his speech, we have set out a budget framework. In it we have the cushion of the contingency reserve amounts, 5 billion this year, 15 next financial year, and a very big one in the outer year, 2017-18. That is precisely intended to make sure that our numbers are robust. In other words, in the event that anything happens, be it a change in economic circumstances that may result then in lower revenue collection, or anything you can think of, that becomes our cushion. It's very important to explain this. We score what is an unallocated reserve amount or contingency reserve as though we are going to spend it. But it is not allocated for any expenditure. So the option not to allocate it or spend it exists to absorb any shock. Of course, the minister was also very emphatic that in the event that anything threatens to derail our plan to achieve those fiscal targets, we can do a number of things to make sure that we achieve those targets. of course, he was repeating something that had been said previously, and he was part of it. I think it was in 2012, Minister, you may remind me, where we said that when economic circumstances change, when anything necessitates that we revisit both our expenditure plans and revenue plans, we wouldn't hesitate to do that with the view to making sure that we achieve our fiscal plans. I hope, Minister, I've now earned my salary for the day.
Thank you, DG. I think that brings us to the end of this press conference. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Victims of the extension of scope by SATAU, by